My buddy, Leo, and I used to have this weird thing we did on weekends. We weren't into parties or anything like that. We were into urban exploration. You know, sneaking into old, abandoned spots. We'd go on Google Maps, find some forgotten factory or a rundown building out in the middle of nowhere, and just go check it out. It was a rush, and it felt like we were uncovering secrets nobody else knew about. One Saturday, we spotted this place on the map, an old water pumping station by the river. It was a good hour's drive out of the city, down some winding country roads. The whole place was overgrown with vines and trees, and you could barely see the brick building through the foliage. It had this big, rusted metal gate out front, but it was just dangling off one hinge. We squeezed through, climbed over a couple of broken-down trucks, and made our way to the main building. The place was huge, maybe 2 stories high, with these giant, arched windows that were all boarded up. The air was thick with the smell of wet dirt and decay. We pried open a side door that was barely hanging on, and stepped inside. The first thing we noticed was how quiet it was. I mean, not just silent, but like the sound was getting swallowed up. The whole building was one big, dusty concrete shell. There were a couple of massive, rusted metal pumps in the middle of the room, each one the size of a small car. They looked like something out of a science fiction movie. Leo and I split up to explore, but we stayed within sight of each other. I started walking toward a set of stairs that led down to a lower level. As I got closer, I heard something. It was this low, humming sound. Not like a machine, but more like a vibrating hum, almost like a guitar string being plucked, but super deep. I stopped and listened. It was coming from below. Leo heard it too and gave me a confused look, but we just figured it was something in the old machinery. I went down the stairs, which were slick with some kind of green moss. The humming got louder, and I could feel it vibrating through the concrete floor. The lower level was a maze of pipes and rusted valves. There was water everywhere, pooled in little puddles on the ground. And then I saw it. Tucked away in a dark corner, a small, open hatch in the floor. The humming was loudest there, almost making my teeth feel a little fuzzy. I knelt down and shined my flashlight into the darkness. I was expecting to see water, maybe a pipe, but all I saw was a thick, muddy substance in the dark, reflective sheen of an immense drop. The humming was coming from deep down there. It had a rhythm to it, a slow, steady pulse that felt deliberate. That's when I heard Leo call out. He sounded spooked. I stood up and hurried back to the main room. He was standing there, staring at the huge pumps in the middle of the room. He pointed to one of them, his finger trembling a little. "Dude," he whispered, "look at this." I shined my flashlight on the side of the pump. There, scrawled in thick, black letters, were a series of words. They were faded and hard to read, but as I got closer, I could make them out. They weren't graffiti. They were a list. A list of names. And next to each name was a date. The dates went back decades, but they were all in sequential order. A couple of them had question marks next to them, as if they were unfinished. The last name on the list had a date from just last month. Leo and I looked at each other. This wasn't just some random list. It felt like a record, a log. And that humming sound from below, it wasn't a machine. It was too low, too organic. Suddenly, the humming stopped. The silence was absolute. And then we heard it. A faint scraping sound, coming from somewhere in the building. It wasn't loud, just a slow, deliberate drag of something heavy on the concrete floor. It was getting closer. My heart was pounding. This wasn't some other explorer or a homeless person. The sound was too slow, too methodical. And the list, we started to realize this place wasn't just abandoned. It was a site. And whatever was keeping that log was still here. We didn't say a word. We just ran. We sprinted out of that building, scrambled through the overgrown weeds and the rusted gate, and didn't stop until we were in the car, speeding back down the road. We didn't even look back. We didn't tell anybody what we saw. Who would believe us? To this day, I can't look at a simple water tower or a big, silent building without feeling that cold dread in my stomach. The thought of that list, and what its last entry was for, is something that's never left me. So, my 2 buddies, Mike and Chris, and I were looking for something to do one Friday night. It was summer, and we had nothing but time. We'd heard some local rumors about an old farm out past the county line on a road they call Cemetery Road. The story was that the family that owned it just up and vanished one day, leaving everything behind. We figured it was probably just an urban legend, but we were bored enough to go check it out. It was already getting dark when we parked my truck about a half-mile away and started hiking in. The property was massive, bordered by these old, broken-down wooden fences. There was no main gate, just a stretch of tangled barbed wire that we had to climb through. It was dead silent out there. No crickets, no birds, just the crunch of our boots on the dry dirt. We walked for what felt like forever, past fields that were all dried up, and then we saw it. The farmhouse. It was a 2-story farmhouse, all paint chipped and run down, with windows that were mostly busted out. Right next to it was a giant, collapsing barn. We got a weird feeling, but we just brushed it off as us being in the middle of nowhere. The first thing that struck us as strange was the animals. There were a bunch of them, but they were all just weird. Not weird animals, but weird behavior. A dozen pigs were just pacing back and forth in a pen, not making a sound. And then we saw the chickens. A whole flock of them, just frozen in place, staring at the barn. It was like a photograph. We joked about it being a zombie farm, but it was honestly kind of creepy. It didn't feel natural. As we got closer to the barn, we noticed something even stranger. All over the outside walls, there were these little symbols painted in red. Just simple geometric shapes, like triangles and circles, repeated over and over. They looked like they'd been there for years, faded and barely visible in the dim light. We weren't sure what to make of it, so we just kept moving. We went to the barn first. The big double doors were hanging open, groaning on their hinges. Inside, it was a mess. Busted up farming equipment, stacks of hay that were probably 100 years old, and a ton of random junk. But what caught our attention was a giant, rusty cage in the back corner. It was one of those old animal transport cages, but it was way bigger than any we'd ever seen. And it had fresh chains wrapped around it, and a brand new padlock. Whatever was in there, they wanted to keep it in. Mike, being the dumbest of the group, started trying to shake the bars, laughing about what we might find inside. But I got a bad feeling and told him to cut it out. As he was messing with it, something fell out of the hay above us. It hit the floor with a clatter. We all froze. We shined our flashlights on it. It was a small, homemade doll, all lumpy and crudely made from hay and twine. But the face was a perfect, almost lifelike human face, just made from dried grass and dirt. And it was smiling. A weird, stretched out smile. That's when we heard it. From the back of the barn, a low, guttural growl. Not from a dog, or any animal we could identify. It sounded human, but distorted, like a voice was trying to get out, but couldn't. It was slow and deliberate. We backed away slowly. The growling got louder. That was our signal to get the heck out of there. We ran out of the barn and made a beeline for the fence line. We were sprinting through the fields, not looking back. We heard a loud crash from inside the barn, and we knew whatever was inside had gotten out. As we were a good 200 yards away, Mike turned to look back and screamed, "What is that?" Chris and I turned around. There was a figure standing in the doorway of the barn. It was tall and thin, but it didn't look right. Its body seemed to be made of shadows and smoke, and as it moved into the moonlight, we could see that it was just a loose collection of hay and straw, crudely arranged to look like a man. But it was moving like it had intent. It began shuffling toward us, its head cocked to the side as if it were listening for us. We were all running now, full speed, not caring about the barbed wire or the bushes. We made it back to the truck, jumped in, and sped out of there. We didn't talk much on the way home, and we sure as heck never went back. To this day, I can't look at a scarecrow or a hay bale without thinking of that farm and the thing that was locked in that cage. It wasn't a ghost or a monster. It was something that someone had created, and it was waiting for them to come back and finish what they had started. I don't know who or what it was for, but I know it's still out there. And I'm glad we didn't wait around to find out. You know how it is. My life's pretty boring, honestly. I'm a programmer, work from home. My whole world is pretty much my apartment and my computer. So when I moved into this new place a few months ago, the most exciting thing was just unpacking everything. The apartment was an older high-rise, and it had this tiny little storage closet near the front door. I was trying to hook up my Wi-Fi, and I was digging around for the modem and I found it. It was just this black box. About the size of a shoebox, but totally smooth. No buttons, no seams, no branding, nothing. Just this weird, solid black thing. I had no idea what it was. I figured it was just some old junk the last tenant left behind. So I just put it on a shelf in the living room and forgot about it. That night, something weird happened. I went to bed around 11, like I always do. It was a normal night. I woke up and just felt off. Like fuzzy. I checked my phone and it was 3:30 a.m. I mean, it's not crazy to wake up then, but I just felt like I had a piece of my night missing. Like I had a dream I couldn't remember, but it was more than that. I just shook it off and went back to sleep. But it kept happening. Over the next few days, I would just lose time. I'd be in the middle of writing some code, focused on the screen, and then suddenly I'd be standing in the kitchen, or a different window would be open on my computer, and a few minutes would just be gone. My brain would feel this little blip, this kind of disoriented feeling. It was subtle at first, and I was trying to rationalize it. I was working too much, not sleeping enough, stressed out. Then I started noticing little things that were different in my apartment. I remember I left my coffee mug on the counter, but I found it in the sink. I know for a fact I put my jacket on the chair, but a few hours later, it was hanging on a hook by the door. I mean, I know I'm not a nut, but I was seriously starting to wonder if I was going crazy. The worst part was, I noticed that the black box was never in the same spot. It was like it was moving on its own. One day, it would be on the shelf. The next, it would be on the floor. It was in the middle of the kitchen table one morning. That's when I finally connected it all. That little black box had something to do with the lost time. I was getting seriously freaked out. I decided to set up my phone to record video while I was sleeping. I figured if it was a sleepwalking thing, or someone was sneaking into my apartment, the camera would catch it. The next morning, I checked the footage. It didn't show anything. It showed me getting into bed, and then the video just cuts off. The clock in the corner of the screen jumped from midnight straight to 6 a.m. The footage was just gone. That was it for me. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know what was going on. I set up a little tripwire with a piece of thread attached to the box, just to see if it would move. I was so tense I couldn't sleep. I just laid there, staring at the ceiling. Then I saw it. A tiny, faint light. It was coming from the box itself, a soft white glow. I watched it, and as I did, something happened. It wasn't a blackout. It was more like a download. A brand new memory just showed up in my head. I remembered it all. The moments I was asleep, the missing footage. The black box wasn't moving on its own. I was moving it. I was walking around the apartment like a puppet, picking up the box and putting it in a different spot. But I wasn't in control. I was just watching myself, like I was in the back of my own head. That's the part that really gets me. That box isn't a thing that makes you lose time. It's a thing that takes you over. I still have it. I haven't been able to bring myself to throw it out. I just hope that whatever it's doing with me, I hope it's almost done.